Yeah, so this week's Parsha begins, this week's Parsha begins with the reward that Pinchas received for doing what he did in the end of last week's Parsha. And the Pasuk says, V'hoiso loi, he will be given kahuna, V'hoiso loi, ulezaroi achrov bris, kahunas oilom, tachas asher kinei leiloikov, vayechaper al b'nei Yisrael. So, bris kahunas oilom. What's kahunas oilom? An eternal covenant of kahuna. My kamashmalon, what would I think? Would I think that he's just he will be a kohen just for a certain amount of time, and after that he will become ois kohen? L'chayra, bris kahunas oilom is the pshat that the kahuna will be continued, that his children will also be, his descendants will be kohanim. Since Pinchas wasn't included in the Zera Aaron that were niskadish l'kahuna, and over here he's receiving as a reward kahuna, so I would think it's just for him and not for his descendants, and that's what the pasuk is saying, bris kahunas oilom. But that l'chayra can't be, because the pasuk says mefurish v'hoiso loi ulezaroi acharov. So it says mefurish that his descendants will be kohanim. So what does the pasuk add? That it's a bris kahunas oilom. So I think this might be tolu in a machlokes rishonim how to learn the meaning of bris kahunas oilom. In Kedushin daf samach vav amid beis, the Gemara says that a ben gerusha uben chalutza that was oimed umakriv al gabe hamizbeach. And we then found out that he's a ben grusha uben chalutza, he's a cholol. So the avodah that he already did is kosher. And where do we know this from? The Gemara brings three sources. One of them is Omar Rav Yehuda, Omar Shmuel, the Omar Krov, v'hoiso loi ulezaroi acharov, bein zera kosher, uvein zera apostle. That this is a yalfusa, that even zera apostle is a kohen, meaning that if a zera apostle did the avodah is not mischal. So Tosfos over there asks, how do we learn from Lazaroi Achrov a ribui for zera apostle? In Kiddushin Daf Daled, Amid Aleph, the Gemara says, "V'zera ein lo," that a bas kohen that lost her husband, that she goes back lebeis avia, she eats truma. But that's only if she doesn't have children. But if she has children, she doesn't go back to achilas truma. So the Gemara says, "V'zera ein lo, ein li elo zera kosher, zera posel minayin." How do we know that not only if she has zera kosher does it hold her back from going back to achilas truma bebeis avia, but even if she has zera posel, it holds her back from going back to achilas truma bebeis avia. Talmud loymar v'zera ein lo. So in spite of the fact that it says ein aleph yud nun, we darshan it ayin alo, ayin yud nun, and b'meila ayin alo means check out carefully if she has children, meaning not only typical children, not only zera kosher holds her back, but even zera posel holds her back. So you see that Pashtus zera means zera kosher, and only over there we have a special drasha from Ein, which we darshan ayin. So Tosfos asks, so why is it that over here we say that v'zaroi v'hoiso loyu l'zaroi achrov is the taich that even zera posel, if he did the avodah, he has kahuna, and the avodah is not posel. So Tosfos answers v'yesh loyma the shani hoche the zaroi miyuter. The word zaroi is b'chlal miyuter over here, as opposed to over there by achilas truma. The havi motzi lemichtiv ulebonov It could have said, V'hoiso loy ulebonov achrov. Shaharei bebonois loy shayach bris kahuna. Lochein darshinon minei afilu zera posel. Therefore, we darshan from the fact that the Torah chose the word zera, that it's afilu zera posel. Aval hosam eina miyute. Shaharei hosam yesh loy bas kemoy bein. Over there in Achilas Truma, she's held back by a bas just like a ben. So the Torah has to use the word zera. But in Parshas Pinchas, the Torah didn't have to use the word zera. And it would have been more appropriate to use the word banov, because only banov have kahuna. And Memela, with darshaning from the fact that the Torah chose to use the word zera, that it includes even zera posel. This that Tosfos says that the Torah could have written over here, bris kahuna soilam, since bonois don't have kahuna, is totally in a machlokes rishonim. And why do I say that? Because in Kedushin Daf Lamed Vav Amud Aleph we have a Mishnah, hasmichois, v'hatnufois, v'hahagoshois, v'hakmitzois, v'hahaktorois, v'hamalikois, v'kabolois, v'hazois, noyagim ba'anoshim v'loy benoshim. So you see, we put into one list some things that Yisraelim do, the Baal HaKorban, like the smichois and the tnufois, and also things that Koyanim do, like Hagoshois, Kmitzis, Haktoris, Malikis, and Kabbalis and Hazois. And we say about all of them that they're Noyeg Ba'anoshim V'loy Benoshim. So the Gemara says, Smichois, how do we know? The Ksiv Daber El B'nei Yisrael V'samach B'nei Yisrael Somchim V'ein B'nois Yisrael Somchois. Tnufois, the Ksiv Daber El B'nei Yisrael V'heiniv B'nei Yisrael Menifim V'ein B'nois Yisrael Menifim. Hagoshois, the Ksiv V'zois Teres HaMinche Hakrev Ois B'nei Aharon V'loy B'nois Aharon, and so on. Now, when we memayed B'nois Yisrael from Smicha and from Tnufa, because it says B'nei Yisrael and we memayed B'nois Yisrael, so the pshat is that only B'nei Yisrael, as Bailim of a carbon, are mechuyev in doing Smicha, are mechuyev in doing Tnufa. So in the same way, we should understand that when we memayit noshim from Hagoshois and Kmitzis and the other avoidus of Kohuna, from the psukim of B'nei Aharon V'loy B'nois Aharon, it's not coming to say that women are not kohanim, and we need Kohuna for these avoidus, and they don't qualify as kohanim. What we're saying is that noshim, being that they're noshim apostle for these avoidus, just like we said that legabe tnufa, legabe smicha, that women are exempt from these things, not that they're not kohanim for these things, because these things don't need kohanim b'chlal. So huadin, l'chayr, when we say b'nei aharon v'lei b'nei saharon legabe these avoidus, we're not disqualifying their kohuna. We're saying that women don't have these things, and that's why the Mishnah Be'emes puts them all in one list, and it comes behemshich to the previous Mishnah, which is talking about mitzvahs asay shazman groma, anoshim chayovin, v'noshim pturos. It's a difference between scharim and a kevis. It has nothing to do with the status of kahuna. Now, in the derech mitzvah secha of the Mishnah Lamelech, he's mesupik, b'noi saharin that did haktorah, are they chayev misa, like a zor, sheshimesh? Or do we say that it's just a lav haba michlal asay? The Torah said that it should be done by a male and not by a female. But they're not bechlal the chiyuv misa of zorus. And he says, he talks out, we can't be mechayev the misa mitzad mechusa begodim, because Tosfos already is. Why do we need a pasuk to be mamayid b'noi saharim from avodas typically that the mechusa begodim? And we say by kahanim bisman she'ein bigdeyem aleihem ein kuhunosam aleihem. And Tosfos says v'yashloim ademayri b'shalov shuab god inami the kivin shaloy nitztavu b'bigdei kuhuna, so they're not considered mechusari begodim. And Memela, the Mishnah Lamelech is mesupik if a kohenes does avoida, is she chayev misa as a zor or not. It's just a lava ba michlal asay. And l'chora, as we said, the pashtus would seem that she's not a zor. She's just a woman. And the avodah was given to men and not to women, just like smicha was given to men and not to women. And if this is true, so then we don't understand. What does Tosfos say? That the pasuk over here could have said, V'hoysa loy ulebonav achrov, bris kahuna soilam, because the bris kahuna is only shaykh by bonim and not by bonis. According to this, it's not true. The bris kahuna is shaykh by bonis just like by bonim. It's just that women are not don't qualify for the avodas that require kohen, but not because they're not a kohen, just because it's a lava ba michlal asay, like the derech mitzvah secha says. But from that l'chayre from Tosfos, you see that he disagrees with what the Mishnah Melech is trying to say. That Tosfos actually holds that a woman is not a kohen, and therefore the Torah could have said v'hoysa loy ulebonav achrov bris kahuna soilam, because women are anyway not kohanim. Truth is, in the Rambam in Hilchos Bias Mikdash, in the beginning of Perek Tes, the Rambam writes, Zor she'ovad b'mikdash, avoidosei psula, v'chayev misa b'dei shamayim, shenemar v'hazor ha'korev, yumos, mipi ha'shmuel lomdu, she'ein chiyuv zeh, elo l'korev la'avodah. That even though it says hazor ha'korev, maybe if just he comes there, no, korev la'avodah. The heichon his here, Olav, V'zor lo yikrav aleichem. Ezehu zor, says the Rambam, what defines a zor? Kol she'enoi mizera arein haschorim. Shenemar v'orchu b'nei aharon, v'iktiru b'nei aharon, b'nei aharon v'lo b'nei aharon. So the Rambam clearly says that a woman is not a kohen, and a woman is a zor, and a woman is chayiv misa, because b'nei aharon v'lo b'nei aharon is not like the miyut of b'nei Yisrael v'lo b'nei Yisrael. B'nei Aharon v'lo b'nei Aharon is telling me that b'nei Aharon are not kahanim. So that l'chayr Tosfos seems to be following the Shitas HaRambam, and therefore Tosfos says that the Torah could have said over here v'hoysa lo lebonav achrov bris kahuna soilam, because bonos are not bichlal kahuna, and Mamela, from the fact that the Torah chose to use the word zaro yachrov, we can learn zera apostle, as the Gemara says in Kiddushin Daf Samach Vov. However, in the Chinuch Mitzvah Shin Tzadik, he says, "V'zalosh shelo yavoid zor b'mikdash koloymar misha einoi mizera Aharon," one that's not a descendant of Aharon. Shenemar v'zor lo yikrav aleichem. Yeah. So the Minchas Chinuch, after he brings the Lashon HaRambam that we just mentioned, he says, "Mavur lahedye the chol she'einoi b'bnei Aharon haschorim havi b'chlal zor umuzah b'lav v'gam chayovim ba'oinish." That's what's mavur from the Rambam. Misa b'dei shamayim, my malchus came zor m'gmurim v'harava mechaber einoi mevi hazechorim. The Rava Mechaber, the Chinuch, did not say that whoever is not a zochar is considered a zor. Efshir denoshim einam b'chlal halav hazeh. Given the hein zera aharon lehavu zor. Ubevadai moida Rava Mechaber denoshim asuris b'avodas hamikdash. Umechalal liavodah. K'moishim avur b'mesechtes kedushin daf lamed vav b'mishnu b'gemara. Ach yeshloimar the svaras Rava Mechaber the einam b'chlal zorim. Achatorah miatoson mibnei aharon v'lo b'nois aharon k'moishim avur shomim kain im ovdu nihi shehin mechalal lois avodah. The avodah is not kosher. Mikol makom loy ovru elo alav abo michlal asay ve'enam michlal oinish klal ki einam over sal alav. So you see that in the Minchas Chinuch, it says like the Mishnah Melech wanted to say. In the end of the mitzvah over there, the Minchas Chinuch writes, "V'noyeg iser zeh b'schorim u'b'nekevos mizman habayis v'av b'zman hazeh shu shomim v'avoy neseinu." So l'chore he says that the lav of zorus is noyeg b'schorim u'b'nekevos. But this, so I mean, you shouldn't be misled by this to think that it says over here that a kohenes nekeva is a zor. What he's saying is a Yisrael that does the avodah is over alt zorus, whether he's male or female. The noiheges mitzvah zu iser zeh v'noyeg iser zeh b'schorim u'b'nekevos. V'oifen al kol panim that in the Minchas Chinuch he's saying that the Shitas HaChinuch seems to be that a kohenes has kahuna. She's just pasul avodah, but she's not a zor. And as we said, l'chora, that's the pashtus, because why should we make a Why should we make a chilik between the miyut of Bnei Yisrael v'lo Bnei Yisrael and the miyut of Bnei Aharon v'lo Bnei Aharon? L'chayra, just like the miyut of Bnei Yisrael v'lo Bnei Yisrael is a miyut in Noshim, who are in the miyut of Bnei Aharon v'lo Bnei Aharon is Mamayit Noshim, but it's not Mamayit them from the Shem Kohuna. It's Mamayit them from Hechsher le'avodah. So we really need to understand where the Rambam and Tosfos are coming from, that they hold that the miut of Bnei Aharon v'lo Bnei Aharon makes Noshim into Zorim. Maybe we can say, Tosfos in Kiddushin Daf Lamed Vav Amud Aleph over there in the Divrei Maskal HaKabolos asks V'im Toimar Amai Itzrich Kro B'Gemara L'Mauti Noshim. Typically, the Kulu Mitzvahs Haseisha Azman Groma Havu. Shahari Einon Noyagois Elo Bayoim. All avoiders of Kochim are only Noyag Bayoim. Diksiv B'Yoim Tzavoisoi. So it's a mitzvah B'Yoim Tzavoisoi L'Hakriv Karboneim. So it's a mitzvah Haseisha Azman Groma. Why do we need B'chlal Pasik to be Memayit women? V'yeshloimar Z'mikol Makom Itzrich Kro L'Meutinu U'Lemifsel Korban B'Noshim. The Ilav Kro L'Havi Yadina Sha'avoida Psula B'Hen. L'Hachi Itzrich Kro L'Meuti L'Meima D'Mechala Li'Avoida V'Avoidason Psula. So it could be that, that's the Pasha L'Chorah, that if we would be Kosi Alo Mishum Mitzvah Seishas Man Grama, so Avada, she wouldn't be considered a Zor. The Mitzvah Seishas Man Grama is an issue of women, not an issue of Kahuna. But now that we have the whole tachlis of the pasuk is coming to tell me that the Mechalal Avoida, it could be that Tosfos and the Rambam hold that Chilul Avoida is totally in Zorus. If she would just not qualify for the Avoida as a Isha, it shouldn't be Mechalal Avoida, but it's really not so clear why we should say that. In any case, Yesh Laharich B'Ze'oid, but not now. And I'm getting back to what we said, that what Tosfos says, that in spite of the fact that we see that in general, Zera is understood to mean Zera kosher, and only in the context of Achilas Truma, where it says Ein, and we darshan Ayin, do we say that Zera includes Zera Posel. Nevertheless, we have the drosha in Kiddushin Daf Samach Vov that tells us that the pasuk of Ahoyso Loyu Lazarei Achro Bris Kahunas Oilam Bein Zera Kosher, Bein Zera Posel. That's because over here the Torah should have said Bonov, because Bonos Abachlal Bichlal Kahuna, and Mamela we have a dikduk to be machshir zera posel. But what Tosfos is saying, is only shayach if we say that, like the Rambam, that women are not kahanim. But if we say, like the chinuch, and like the Mishnah Melech wanted to understand, that a woman is not a zor, then we can't say what Tosfos says, that the Torah should have said, and Mamela Tosfos' kasha comes back to haunt us according to the chinuch and according to the Mishnah Melech. How do we darshan zera posel from zaroi achrov? The Torah had to say zaroi achrov. The Torah couldn't have said bonov, because bonov would exclude bonos, and bonos are not excluded from the shame kohen. But the emes is that the Tosfos is shver. Why does Tosfos have to say that it's miyuter? Because it could have said bonov, and it didn't have to say zaroi. L'chorah, it didn't have to say anything, because it says kahunas oilam. Kahunas oilam, l'chorah, means children. An eternal covenant of priesthood means that it will go on to his descendants. So why does it have to say b'chlal v'hoysa loyu l'bonav achrav? No, it doesn't have to say bonav, it doesn't have to say zaroi. So why did Tosfos have to say what he said? Vaistois, that Tosfos holds that bris kahunas oilam does not necessarily mean his descendants. How could bris kahunas oilam not mean his descendants? What could it mean? So then the Targum Yonis ben Ezil in this week's Parsha, and Rashi and Bava Metzia Daf Kuf Yudal Dam and Beis, and in many other sources, Chazal say that Pinchas ze Elio. Now, about Elio, it says Vayal Elio Besaro Hashomayim, and about him we say that Loy Tam Misa, and he still Kayom begufayu benafshe, as it's mavur in the Gemara in Bava Basra, Daf Kuf Chaf Aleph. Lefizeh, Pinchas himself held on to his kahuna eternally. And that's why it says Bris Kahuna Soilam. So Bris Kahuna Soilam is not about his descendants. And Mamela Tosfos held that it needed to say V'hoisoloi Ula Achrov. Tosfos just says it could have said Labanav Achrov, didn't have to say Lazare Achrov. But the other shita will say that the Bris Kahuna Soilam really means children, and Mamela the ganze V'hoisoloi Labanav Achrov is miyuter, Lazare Achrov is miyuter, and Mamela we have a drasha to be mar bezer apostle. Al kol ponim, according to Tosfos, I'm saying that the reading of Bris Kahuna Soilam is that he will be a kohen eternally, and it doesn't mean children. And children, it only says in V'hoisoloi ulazarei achrov. We can add that Pinchas Eliyahu, and he holds on to his kahuna eternally, is actually Negei Ladina, and it's shaykh to his role as the Mevaser HaGeula. And why? Because we have a Mishnah in Menachos Daf Mem Tes Amud Beis that ein mechanchin es mizbach ha'oila ela b'tamid shel shachar. The first korban that has to be brought on a new mizbeach is a tamid shel shachar. And so it says in the Rambam Hilchos Pidyon Musafim to'u oy shogegu afila hezidu v'lo yikrivu tamid shel shachar yakrivu tamid shel bnei habayim. I mean, every day you have to bring the Tamid Shel Shachar before the Tamid Shel Bnei Habayim. But if Tohu or Shogagu is after Leizidu, V'lei Yikrivu Tamid Shel Shachar, Yakrivu Tamid Shel Bnei Habayim. B'ben Dvarim Amurim b'Shenes Chanach HaMizbeach. Avol im hoyo Mizbeach Chodosh. She'adayin lo yikorav olav klum, lo yakrivu olav tchila bnei habayim. She'ein mechanchin Mizbach ha'oilo elo b'Tamid Shel Shachar. Now we have another halacha. That's mavur in Menachos Daf Nun Aleph Amud Beis, that a kohen einoi oived at sheyovi asiris ha'efa v'oivda b'yodoi. A kohen is meschanech la'avoida by doing what? By bringing a minchas chavitin, which is also called a minchas chinuch, and with that he becomes muchshir la'avoida. The Rambam in Hilchos Klei Hamikdash ein ha-kohen oived tchila v'chein kohen gadol ein oived tchila at sheyovi asiris ha'efa mishaloi v'oivda b'yodoi. Shenema zeh korban aharon ubanav asher yikrivu l'Hashem b'yom yimon shechoysev im ovad koidim sheyavi asiris ha'efa v'chein kohen gadol she'ovad b'kohuna gdoila koidim sheyavi asiris ha'efa, but it doesn't kshera. It's kosher b'digah. But I'll upon him now. The question is like this: how are we going to start the avodah l'osid lovoi when mizbeach chodosh b'tzion tochin? The mizbeach is going to need a chinuch with a tamid shel shachar, and the kohenim will need a chinuch with a minchas chavitin. Now, true that it says in the Rambam that she was oived before he brought the Asir Seifa, Avodas Kshera. That is in the Mari Kurkus. He says that there's a gerson in the Teras Koyanim that Avodas Psula. But in the Rambam it says Avodas Kshera. And also in the din of Ein Mechanchin, as a Mizbeach Elo B'Tamid Shel Shachar, the Briskerov says, B'Shitas Rambam, the B'Diyevet, it's Mischanach B'Chol Dover. Okay, so that's B'Diyevet. But L'chatchila, the kohen needs a chinuch with a minchas chavitin, and the mizbeach needs a chinuch with. And the mizbeach needs a chinuch, with the minchas with the tamid shel shachar. So the question is: are we going to really start the avodah l'osid lavoi? We're going to start the avodah l'osid lavoi with a b'di'evet, No, in the Rambam, in the Ramban, in the Sefer Mitzvah Shorish Gimel, he talks out, Aaron ubanav kvar botlo mishichoson mimenu umizaroi b'shas hamisa, v'yiyu anoshim mechudoshim, yitztarchu le'eskadesh kivarishon. So the Ramban clearly spells out that koyanim that will become betchias hamesim will need a new chinuch. The Malbim in Yecheskel Mem Dalet Chav Zayin says v'chein Yecheskel asher huftach lokum betchia bebayis hashlishi v'imoy hakoyanim asher yamdu oz betchia Hagam sheikrivu minches chinuch ba'oidam oivdim b'chayeyem b'migdosh yitztarchu lahavi minches chinuch mei chodosh. So it's mafurish that they'll have to bring another minches chinuch. So we could say a shtickle eitze, because Tosfos and Zvachim Daf Nun Tesam at Beis says that just like we have a halacha of mizbeach haktores shenekar maktirin bimkoimoy hu adin minochis in the place of the mizbeach ha-chitzoy. Lefize, we can say that the kohen will be makriv his minches chavitin on the mekoim ha-mizbeach before we will build the mizbeach, and memela the kohen will become mechunech, and afterwards we'll build the mizbeach, and on the mizbeach we'll bring first tamid shel shachar. But Rashi's shita over there in Zvachim Daf Nun Tes is that only in the mizbeach hapnimi we have the din of maktirim b'mkoimah, and not in the mizbeach hachitz. So this eitz is not an eitz. And even according to Tosfos, that it's true even by the mizbeach hachitzim that maktirim b'mkoimah. According to the Midrash Chazal that Rashi brings in Sukkah Daf Mem Aleph and in Rosh Hashanah Daf Lamed, that the Mikdosh de la'asid yereid bonoi u'meshuchlol min hashamayim. So we won't have the opportunity for the kohen to bring his minchas chavitin in the Mokem HaMizbech, because the Mizbech will be there already. But it says, Hine onoichi shoyleach lochem es Eliyahu hanovi lefnei boy yoim Hashem hagodol v'hanoyer. So, and Eliyahu is going to come before Bias HaMoshiach, right? No, and Eliyahu was Ola Basar HaShemayim, and he wasn't Toim Tamisa, and Pinchas Eliyahu, and Memele, and his kahuna is a bris kahunas oilam, and he doesn't need a chinuch because he never died, and he will be able to be mechanech the mizbech b'tamid shel shachar, and then the kohanim will be mischanech, all the other kohanim will be mischanech with the minchas chavitit, and Memele. That's a relevant message for the Yemei Ben HaMetzorim, that Yibona Beis HaMikdash b'mehera b'yameinu v'shom na'ale v'neira v'nishtachave. Okay, Rabbi Isai.